Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Malecki, and in this video I build this bookshelf. As you see, it's featuring some sliding barn door hardware. I made this DIY style without using my welder and strictly using parts that I found at the local home store. If you want to see how I did it, stick around. Alright everyone, so this project's going to start out pretty standard with the normal process. I'm going to pick my lumber. Because I'm using reclaimed wood, I'm going to de-nail it, and then I'm going to hit the jointer, planer, and table saw to get it square. So if you would like to build something similar to this, I will have a cut list in the plans available for you to follow along with. I typically build projects like this one with reclaimed wood by the order that I'm putting the parts together. So if you notice, I typically will mill down stock and then assemble a panel and then go into the next part of the build. A lot of people like to cut everything beforehand. I like to measure relative to the project. It's up to you. The cut list is available. So here I'm milling everything down to 1.5 inches, and this will be the top, bottom, and sides of the bookshelf. When using reclaimed wood like this, I like to keep the stock as wide as possible, so I barely take off the edges just to get them nice and square. I'll cut everything to final size once I have the panels all glued up. I apply a liberal amount of glue, always squiggles, never swirls, and then I let it dry in clamps for at least 5 hours before I get to the next part. Quick tip: when you're milling any stock, make sure you're always using the joiner cup side down. That'll give you a more consistent flat bottom, as well as you won't have to take off as much material to get that surface reference. So there's a lot of panels to glue up in this project. I have all of the shelves, the top, the bottom, the sides, and then I cut everything to size, as you can see here, and I'll run it through the planer to flatten it, but it helps me out before sanding. It really takes a ton of time off the process having a 20-inch planer. So as you can see, I'm using my Domino XL here, and it's strictly because I have one. You can also use dowels, you could use face screws, you could use pocket holes, which I hate, but all of those are plausible options for a build like this. It just comes down to your preference. I think that the Domino gives a stronger joint. A lap joint would be great here, as well as a tongue and groove. I mean, you literally have endless options. So then I lay it out on the floor. I do a rough fitting with all the dominoes, which is off camera, and then I glue this bad boy up. So if you're wondering why there's a little girl popping on the screen, that would be my intern Olivia. If you've seen my Instagram, you've seen some of her photos. She's doing an excellent job, and I'm loving having her in the shop. Here, I'm getting creative with the glue up. I'm using a tie down from my truck, and that gives me a circular clamping mechanism to a degree. If you have strap clamps, you can use those as well. And then I kind of rig it up so that I have long enough clamps to glue the box. Back to milling more stock. Here I'm going to be resawing the back paneling. So I stink at using my bandsaw, and it's never tuned up, nor do I have a resaw blade right now, so I'm resawing all this on the table saw. I'm sawing them down to 1/2 inch thick, and then these I'm putting lap joints on each opposite side. That way they can lay in each other on the back of the cabinet. I carry the bear over to my workbench, and then I cut a 1/2 inch rabbet in the back on the open sides. For me, this is easier to do after it's assembled, and this is how I build all my cabinets. A lot of people will put a dado in there and then assemble the carcass, whatever your preference is. Here you can see how I'm laying in the back slats, and they all go in there with the little tongues and lap joints, and they just lay nice and neat. It keeps it all one integral part. I added some glue, and then I shot some 18 gauge brad nails into this bad boy, and I would have used some staples, but I don't have a stapler. Resaw some more lumber, and then it's on to assembling the doors. I'm just using face joints, nails, glues, and you could put some screws in here if you'd like. But the reason I'm doing this is because I wanted the doors to not look perfect. I wanted them to have that sort of barn feel where you could see some light coming through them, because this is a bookshelf and it really doesn't need privacy. Move on to the trim work, where I cut a miter and then I reference the top of the cabinet. Then I go ahead and assemble the top and the bottom and then put it onto the cabinet. You could assemble it around the cabinet if you'd like as well. I chose to do it this way. Here I'm attaching the bottom first, and as you can see I'm using pocket holes to screw it up in. What I did was create the reveal I wanted on the front face and then sat the whole cabinet all the way down in. On the top here I had it open for more shelving, and I used glue and 23 gauge pin nails. On to the fun part. I found 2-inch clothesline wheels and I cut them into pieces. If you'd like to see that a little bit more, I'll have photographs on how to walk you through it on my website, and I'll have a link down below. But essentially I'm just cutting up a bunch of metal, pre-drilling it, and then screwing it back together. I pre-drill all the metal using a metal bit. It makes it quite easy, and then I cut some 3/4 inch pipe for spacers on the cabinet itself. What you do is you'll run the face screw onto the cabinet here, into the spacer, and then into the cabinet. What that does is sets the track off of the cabinet and lets it flow back and forth with some space behind it. You can see that right here. Here I'm cutting up the parts that will attach to the wheel and then attach to the door. I'm pre-drilling everything first on my drill press so it's nice and straight, and then I will attach it to the door. I'll use the holes that I create in all of the parts as reference and then pre-drill on the door. I round over all the edges and then start assembling these bad boys. You got a washer on both sides and a lock nut. I snug it up so it spins, and then it's on to attaching it to the door. I measure the spacing that I'd like. As you see, I use it for a guide to drill the holes through and bolt that bad boy on there, rolling nicely. Here I'm notching for the center part in the middle of the cabinet. What that does is lets that sit flush with the back of the cabinet, and then it's on to sanding. Sand everything up to 150 grit, and then I'm going to put a very, very dark Minwax stain on the entire cabinet because I love the way it makes the grain pop. And you can see that here, applying the stain goes on pretty easily, and then wipe it off, leaves that grain really coming through. The reclaimed wood looks awesome with stain on it. I'm not a huge fan. This is the least favorite part of the process for me. And then I'm sealing it with my favorite Endurovar. I get a lot of questions about this. There is a link down below if you would like to try it out yourself. Go right ahead. I also have more information on my website where you can look into it as well. I'm using my Graco Pro HVLP 9.5, I think it is. Unbelievable sprayer. Well worth the investment if you're spraying full time. So back onto the cabinet after it's finished, I painted all of the hardware. Now I'm just reattaching it. I would advise doing this by hand so you don't strip anything out. I installed the shelving on adjustable pins, and then it was time for the doors and final beauty shots.
All right, everybody, that's gonna be a wrap on this build. I really wanna thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what I'm doing, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Trying to grow this channel as much as possible. Love to have you on board. If you wanna see how I built this and build it yourself and more detailed plans, there'll be a link down below for that. Make sure you click on that. You can check out how to do the DIY hardware as well as parts lists and tools I used in the build. Also, make sure you're following me on Instagram. Having a blast over there. Love Instagram, love interacting with each and every one of you. I launched a podcast recently with my buddy Brad Rodriguez from Fix This Build That. It's going fantastic. We're talking business in the shop and helping people monetize as makers like myself. So if you want to grow your business and grow your social media, head on over there and check that out. So thank you guys one more time for tuning in, and until next time, I'll see you on the next video.